Alright, now on to better pastures. Welcome to Super Mario Advance for the Game Boy Advance.
AKA Super Mario Brothers 2.
Or as this game, or as Charles Martinet puts it in this game, Super Mario 2!
Yep. Fun fact, actually, when I got this game, I actually got it in one of those double packs that combined this with Mario Brothers for the Game Boy Advance. Specifically the pipe sewer game Mario Brothers, not, Super Mario Brothers.
Alright. So, for the record, everybody, I'm playing a ROM hack of Super Mario Advance that does some changes that I will mention in a moment after we get through the single player menu. There you go.
Let me guess, Invincibility is one of those. Oh, yeah, actually, no, this is the pack that I played, since it includes Mario Brothers.
Well, yeah, and no, Joe, but my Invincibility is just a Game Genie cheat. Like, the ROM hack that I did get is something much more drastic. Anyway, Mario Brothers.
I got the...
Wait a minute, that's not the logo.
Because, you know when they did that ambassador program for the 3DS?
Yes.
I got the dual pack of the GBA version of Mario World 2 that also included this game within it.
Yes, this game is nowadays this game is retroactively being called Mario Brothers Classic to help separate it from Super.
I can see that this ROM hack increases the resolution.
No, that's not what it does. You might notice how Mario looks significantly paler compared to what I just showed before we get into this one. That's because when I'm playing a ROM hack that removes the okay, one thing that a lot of Super Nintendo ports of the GBA did, because of the original GBA having a really shitty screen with no backlight, games like the Aladdin SNES port and this one would make the graphics a lot more brighter, to make it easier to see. However, that's not how... So basically, when they ported the Super Nintendo version of Super Mario Bros. 2, yeah, see? Super Mario 2! Like, what the hell?
It's not just Mario, it's all the other three characters are saying that.
Super Mario Tor? Where is he German now? Super Mario Gates! Like, what's
Alright. Yes, Jova?
Also, no, the screen really does look wider than I recall it being on the Game Boy Advance. It does look like the ROM hack upped the resolution.
Well, that's
Maybe that's the emulator, Jova.
I'm pretty sure it's the emulator that does that.
Well, usually, in my experience, the emulator usually keeps the screen ratio the same. But here, it really does look wider.
Oh, well, the aspect ratio is still the same. Like, the screen is just scaled to fit an HD TV. Okay, so notice how Mario's sprite right now looks much closer to the Super Nintendo All-Stars version of Super Mario Bros. So that's because this hack changes it so that it reverts the game back to its original SNES colors. Because now that we play these games on emulators, now we don't need the brighter graphics anymore because we can now play these games on a screen that we can actually see things. So yeah. There's also a ROM hack that does that to the GBA version of Aladdin, for the sake of, and I also have a ROM hack that cleans up the music to sound better because the GBA speakers were, yeah.
They weren't great most of the time.
Yeah, speaking of which, because I don't know this, is the soundtrack basically the copy-pasted from the Super Nintendo version, or is it still redone in some kind of fashion for the GBA?
They ported the music from the Super Nintendo, but it sounds a bit grainier on the GBA version. But again, this ROM hack cleans it. Go on.
Okay. Let me... It was slightly touched up and redone a bit because they had to convert it for the Game Boy Advance, essentially. I don't recall for certain if they outright remixed the tune at some point or not. They may have, but don't quote me on that.
That's because, again, I honestly don't really think the Mario World font really fits for this, because if you know anything about internet culture, this particular theme for the first world of Mario 2 is legendary, especially for shitpost posting purposes, and not hearing it in this particular format just feels weird. It's not like it's a case of, I just want the original, because, for example, the Smash Ultimate remix of it is actually pretty great, despite using the modern instruments for it. But this, compared to how the Mario World music font was used for the soundtracks of the first Mario, this doesn't feel quite the same right to me.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
I disagree. I feel like it fits really just fine, honestly, especially given how it's on a Game Boy Advance.
I think honestly, there you go. See, that big vegetable is exclusive to this GBA port.
All right. So let's get into the nitty-gritty with this game here. As you know, this was essentially meant to be the Super Mario Brothers sequel made specifically for Americans, because
that's because
the Japanese market thought that the sequel would be not to our particular taste.
Yes, here's the basic.
Which is kind of ironic, because nowadays this is probably universally considered the better take on an actual sequel for the franchise.
Retroactively, it's now become officially a sequel, the sequel to the original, because nowadays Lost Levels is usually regarded as just that, Lost Levels, whereas only Japan still calls it Super Mario Bros. 2 at this point. But the point is, here's the basic history, everybody. Back in 1983, even before the original Super Mario Bros., the Super Mario team actually made a game specifically for a Japanese festival. The other one problem that Super Mario Bros. 2 does have is Contra Syndrome. I get that back when this game was originally made on the NES, this was common, but goddamn, you'd think they would fix this in the subsequent ports, but I guess not. Oh well. The point is, Miyamoto and his team made a game called Doki Doki Panic. That game had nothing to do with Super Mario Brothers, and was made specifically for the celebration of a specific Japanese festival. It was basically a partnership between that festival and Nintendo. So basically, when it came the time to make a Mario game for the US, they thought, there's this game we have. It was made by the same team. We can maybe rework this into a Mario game, and that's what they did. And that's why this game works so differently from all the other mainline Mario platformers. Whereas Mario Bros. 3 would immediately go back to the basic core formula of the original game. This one still stands as pretty much a very outlier in the mainline series, because it works very differently. You can't kill enemies by jumping on them. You have to throw things at them. So, again, this didn't start out its life as a Mario game, and it shows, because it doesn't work in any way like the other mainline Mario games.
Now, it's not too much of an outlier, because despite this definitely being a reskin of Doki Doki Panic, what it did provide for the series were a lot of bouts for the world that would pretty much find their mainstay here, like Shy Guys,
the enemy
Ninja
variety,
Guys,
and even
essentially.
some power-ups, like the power block, instead comes from the original Mario Bros. But a couple of the minor power-ups actually, are also from here.
Even the plant pulling gimmick would see a return in Peach and Daisy's movesets in Smash. So, to give this game credit, while it is a bit of an outlier, it still has enough of that Mario identity that it was able to even influence the series. Again, like Pedro mentioned, for good reason, this is considered the canonical sequels to the game.
Honestly, I find it more hilarious the fact that in terms of character comparison to Doki Doki Panic, Toad is actually fulfilling the role of what was the protagonist in Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah, basically.
Yes, if you may have noticed, Toad has some of the best stats in the game.
He can grab things instantly. Like, he has the most strength, but he sucks at jumping. If that helps you.
Pretty sure he has the most speed as well, too.
Yeah. He's also super fast, but his jump is kind of shit.
Well, like Tio said, he's kind of based off of the main protagonist from the game that this was based off of, ironically. That being said, most players probably know how much of a carry Peach was in this game, which would carry over to 3D World as well. Yeah, for all people who think that Peach is useless in the games, think that no more, because, believe it or not, technically as early as the second game in canon, Peach was strutting along as playable along with the other characters.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. Basically, if you get all 5 red coins, you get a 1-up. Just what I needed. Yeah, I actually really love Charles Martinet's voice clips that he made for the GBA games, just what I needed.
Yeah, true. That's a thing. A lot of the quotes people like to quote from the series also originated from this game's Game Boy Advance
like
version as
to
well.
me, the early 2000s was when Charles Martinet was at his peak. Like the stuff he did for Sunshine, the stuff he did for these games, he perfected his voice by this point.
Oh boy, here we go. Hey, Birdo!
Prepare to fight this boss over and over and over and over, because that's actually one of the problems I have with this game. Much like they didn't fix the main problem with the original game. There's still a huge lack of boss variety. Don't get me wrong, it's still better than the original game because you have bosses outside of Birdo, but Birdo is basically 90% of the bosses in this game. Go on.
I'm curious, was Birdo also in the original Doki Doki
Yes.
Panic game?
Yes, all of these characters.
So that's a Mario character who literally owns her, or his if you prefer, origins in the old.
Yes.
I gotta say, I prefer the NES version of the boss music to this one.
Sure.
Yeah, like you said, I'm
like-
not impressed by this soundtrack in particular.
I am fine with this game's version of the soundtrack. In fact, in some cases, I kind of prefer some of the GBA's versions on it, but it really is up to you which one your ears prefer.
Theo, Birdo brings a good point because, yes, by the way, another thing, we don't even have a retreading of Bowser as the villain. There's a completely original new creation for this.
See,
That's
that's
this
because
is all connected also to the ending of the game, but you were far
yeah,
from that.
we'll get to that. Okay, so let's try Peach. Okay, so just like you saw in Super Mario 3D World, yes, Peach can hover for a short time. This is the game where the ability first came from. Let me explain. In the original game, like Theo said, Mario replaced Papa, Luigi replaced Mama, and Toad and Peach were originally the two kids. Basically, Joe, but the idea is that all the four main characters of Doki Doki Panic, those were the ones that were actually owned by the festival. All of the other enemy characters that were on the game, those were originally created by Miyamoto's team, so Nintendo got to own those characters. So as long as they removed the four main characters from Doki Doki Panic, it was fair game for them to just re-release this thing.
So when you think about it...
This is also why the actual characters from Doki Doki Panic have never been referenced in any way whatsoever, even for stuff like classification in like the Smash Bros. Games.
So when you think about it, Doki Doki Panic could in some ways be considered a glorified prototype of this game, since... honestly, to give them credit, it does sound like the characters were in a good stance to act as, like, obvious things for the Mario characters to go over. Like, of course it makes sense that Peach would hover. She has
a skirt,
a literal
I guess.
umbrella skirt, essentially. And of course it makes sense that Luigi would act the way he does. It's similar. Actually, it's kind of an interesting translation of how he differed from Mario in Mario Brothers 2: The Lost Levels.
Yeah, you can. Most likely that's why they chose him to replace Mama. Probably they looked at because the Super Mario conversion of Doki Doki Panic was actually handled by the same developers of the original Doki Doki Panic. So they probably looked at what was done in Lost Levels and thought, might as well, in that case, we might as well make Luigi Mama. There you go.
So in other words, you will say, that's Mama Luigi
Mama
to you,
Luigi
Mario.
to you.
Yeah. Yes. There you go.
It all comes full circle.
That being said, as a Mario veteran, I do have my own issues with this game. Again, the fact that this didn't start off as a Mario game kind of shows, and as a result, there are some things in this game that that are not typical traits that I expect from a mainline Mario game. One, the one you just already saw, Contra Syndrome. That's never been even Super Mario Brothers 1 for as much as it doesn't let you go back, like Jove has mentioned, even that one at the very least doesn't have Contra Syndrome, but in here, yeah, Contra Syndrome in a Mario game is just... No, I'm sorry, I don't want Contra Syndrome in my Mario game.
That's fair.
What else? Well, actually, I'll talk about some of my... let's just say there's the way this game is designed, again, you can tell this game was originally not made for Mario in mind, because there are some distinct differences than how Mario is usually designed compared to how this game is designed.
I am willing to give this game credit, though. It definitely handles the whole injecting itself into a foreign series a lot better
Oh, yeah.
Other games do, and I'll give this game credit though. While you can't beat enemies by jumping on them, you thankfully don't have that stupid gimmick. Well, not so much gimmick, but you don't have that stupid trope of being allergic to so much as touching enemies. You can use them as platforms in their own right.
Oh yeah, in this game. Okay, so it was around this time that Leslie Swan, aka the woman who played Peach in, yeah, there you go. See, again, just pick up her eggs and throw it back at her. It's always the same thing. But anyway, yeah, this is the game. This is around the time where Peach stopped being voiced by Leslie Swan, aka the woman who voiced her in Mario 64, and stopped being voiced by whoever the hell voices her to this day. Like, because I always really liked the Leslie Swan's voice for Peach, and the voice they actually got for the proper official voice after that, I never understood. Like, she doesn't sound like a woman. She sounds like a man trying to sound like a woman. It's just like, I don't know.
I've never really agreed with that. Like, I get that she sounds a bit prissy, but I feel like that's always been the point with Peach, that, yeah, she sounds dainty and sweet, but she is still capable in that regard here and there.
No, I'm not talking about her character, I'm talking about her voice. My problem is her voice.
That's what I'm talking about, though. I feel like the voice plays into that as well.
I don't know. Like, when it comes to Mario, like, I prefer the way, like, what they did with the Super Show and 64. I prefer Peach when she's just voiced by a woman normally, because I feel like that's why I'm actually very happy with her voice in the new movie, because I actually prefer Peach sounding like a woman, to be honest with you.
Except I argue she does still sound like a woman. It really just depends on how you feel about that. Honestly, I've heard plenty of women who do sound like how Peach does currently in the game, so I don't really agree with the idea that she supposedly sounds like a man trying to do a woman's voice.
Me personally, as long as she doesn't sound like anything like she did in the Super Show, I'm okay.
Okay, hold on. What was wrong with the way she sounded in the Super Show? She was just a woman doing a typical voice. I mean, what was wrong with her?
I'm guessing.
Okay, I mean, if you talk about Toad, definitely, but I don't see how Peach's voice was annoying. She was probably one of.
Not to mention the acting wasn't really all that.
Her acting. I mean, it's just like she was Meryl Streep or anything. I will concede that, but I didn't think the voice was a problem.
I'm not expecting Meryl Streep. I just didn't really like the performance in it.
I guess.
What
about Leslie Swan?
You thought she sounded a bit generic.
Although again, funny thing though. I mean, it does kind of make sense in context, but basically, I think at this point, Toad and Peach shared the same voice actress.
Yeah. Like,
interesting.
See, the thing is, having grown up, see, I played Mario 64 all the way back in '96 when it first came out. So when I heard Peach speak with Leslie Swan's voice, I immediately started associating that voice with her. So when they changed it to the new voice, it kind of felt jarring to me, because I always prefer. Go on.
So it's kind of about it clashing with what you grew up with. That I can understand more.
It's because okay. Like I said, unlike Dwebs, I didn't mind her voice in the Super Show. Combined with the fact that Leslie Swan also went for the same type of approach, I kind of to me, since Peach is supposed to be a more grounded character compared to the wacky characters that are around her, I guess it makes sense to have her have a more normal voice. But I don't know. To me, I don't know. I just prefer when Peach is voiced like more normally, like Leslie Swan did it. Well, like what if we got Leslie Swan then, Dwibs?
I guess I just can't really agree, because I think that suggesting that the way Peach sounds now isn't normal doesn't really make much sense either, because there are women who can sound like that.
Around this point, Peach and Toad as well were voiced by Jen Taylor, who's nowadays more.
That's why I'm actually looking forward to Anya playing Peach, because, like I said, she's a really good actress, and she's shown in Queen's Gambit, and, like I said, I actually do really like her Peach voice from what we've heard so far, so.
I'm mad on her Peach voice, because it really does just sound like a generic, she's doing her own voice as opposed to something that feels like a mix for the character. Maybe she'll have better showing in the actual movie, so I'm not writing final judgment off.
I do.
Granted, the whole it's just characters sounding like their own voices is kind of been wildly agreed to be the main issue a lot of people have with the English version of the cast of the Mario movie, especially when a lot of other dubs of that movie, at least going off of the trailer, seem to at least try to have the characters sounding more like their game's counterpart while mixing in their own stuff. Kind of like how Jack Black is doing his Bowser thing.
I was going to say, to be honest, I thought that complaint was more strictly towards Chris Pratt, because
Oh, definitely.
and a couple of others to a lesser extent, because I've seen the trailers, and so far I think the best voice so far is best voices are Bowser, because I'll give Jack Black credit, it doesn't sound like him, if you know what I mean, and Toad, because I can understand people issuing the whole.
Oh, and let me explain something here.
Hold on, Dibs, let Pedro explain this.
Yeah,
Oh.
I just stopped.
Okay, yeah, here's another thing. You need this key to open the door to get through the level. Here's the problem. Because of Toad's shitty jump, you can't get there. So you have to try your best to get back. The problem is, in order to change characters, you have to either quit the level or die. So, yeah, this is probably another thing that probably could have been made during this port. Have it be like
actually...
Yes?
You actually can get up there with Toad, but the way to get up there is pretty specific. Takes a lot of a running start. See, the idea with Toad is you want to use his speed in mind so that you can get the right angle for a jump. It is not easy, mind you, and I will agree that it is way tougher than it should have been, but it's not impossible to get up there with him. I definitely have been able to get up there while using him. Granted, despite his speed and power, he is not my preferred character for this game, surprise of all surprises.
Yeah, because, I mean, considering this is a platformer, his low jump is kind of a problem. But,
yeah, like, I mean, I kid you not, he was actually the character I used.
He's a good character to use
when completing this game.
I mean, he's a good character to use for the bosses because he can grab and throw things immediately, unlike the others. So basically, from this point on, I'll be using Mario because, as you just saw there, Mario is the one that has the most balanced stats. He has 4 stars out of 5 for every single stat. So yeah, he's the one you should play as because while it is nice for them to include some nice character variety, yeah, the best way to play this game is using Mario because Mario is the one that fits literally the jack of all trades. Go on.
I feel like Mario, Luigi, and Peach pretty much cover all your bases in regards to this game. Like, Peach, if you're really a big beginner of sorts and, you know, you kind of just need that help, essentially. Luigi is great for getting to hard-to-reach areas, so long as you can handle him well with the slippery controls and whatnot. And like Pedro mentioned, Mario's the all-arounder here. Again, sadly, while he's not impossible to use, I do have to say Toad is probably the one who you will find the least amount of uses for. Again, save for bosses.
Yep.
As I was saying, best voices so far are Bowser and I can get why people think the whole people don't want to hear Charles Martinet as Mario for 2 hours complaint is a bit silly, but I'm sorry. Toad's game voice, that for 90 minutes is just oof.
Oh yeah, no, Keegan-Michael Key.
No, thank you.
Keegan-Michael Key thankfully seems to be okay. He is not outright taking out the characteristics of Toad's voice, but he's definitely making it a lot more bearable. Like, here's the thing: when it comes to the voices that people genuinely like, it's Bowser, Toad, ironically, and Magic Koopa Kamek, essentially. The problem is, the characters that people have the most issues with voice-wise are the main heroic trio cast, essentially, in that regard. Not to say that there aren't people who enjoy Peach and Luigi's, let's be honest, Chris Pratt's has definitely been the one that's gotten the most flack, but they all do have that issue of, well, again, it sounds like they're doing their generic voices. I just hope that the trailer isn't showing out the best, and it will hopefully be better. So, here's our first Mauser.
Yes.
This guy showed up a lot in the Super Show.
Yep. Okay, so this is Mauser, yeah. Okay, so let me explain something. By the way, you might have seen how I was throwing potions. Potions somehow take you doors to different dimensions where you can see reverse worlds of where you are. It's kind of weird. Again, it's a Doki Doki Panic thing. In fact, let me just quickly get the manual so we can read the story. And yeah, I actually really like, I think it's Martinet doing Mauser, I think? Probably.
I don't know.
Okay, so let's take a look at the original NES manual. The story of Super Mario Bros. 2. One evening, Mario had a strange dream. He dreamt of a long, long stairway leading up to a door. As soon as the... Oh yeah, actually I forgot to... Actually really like... Yeah. No problem! But, yeah. As soon as the door opened, he was confronted with a world that he'd never seen before. When he strained his ears to listen, he heard a faint voice saying, "Welcome to Subcon." So this world is called the Subcon, the Land of Dreams. We have been cursed by Wart, and we are completely under his evil spell. We have been awaiting your arrival. Please defeat Wart and return Subcon to its natural state. This is also going to become a pattern in the mainline Mario platformers. Some kind of world / kingdom that needs help, and Mario will save it, like in 3D World. Yeah. The curse Wart has put you in the real world will not have any effect on you. Here, remember, Wart eats vegetables. Please help us. At the same time this was heard, a bolt of lightning flashed before Mario's eyes. Stunned, Mario lost his footing and tumbled upside down. He awoke with a start to find himself sitting up on his bed. To clear his head, Mario talked to Luigi, Toad, and Princess about the strange dream he had. They decide to go to a nearby mountain for a picnic. After arriving at the picnic area and looking at the scenery, they see a small cave nearby. When they enter this cave, to their great surprise, there's a stairway leading up and up. It is exactly like the one Mario saw in his dream. They all walk together up the stairs at the top and find a door like the one in Mario's dream. When Mario and his friends in fear open the door, to their surprise, the world that they saw in his dream spreads out before them. So basically, the dream was a prophecy to ask Mario to say, now that we are actually in Subcon, this time not in a dream. Yeah, keep that in mind for the end. So, yeah, this is basically Super Mario Bros. 2 in the dream world. There you go. So tune in next time.
What you're saying is, if we ever get an adaptation of this game, we gotta get Christopher Nolan on it.
Sure, why not? Well, actually, Jova, keep that in mind for the ending. For now, let's just...
Christopher Nolan will manage to make the technology sufficient enough to manage to have someone pull out a turnip from the ground without CGI.
Alright, see ya.
Wonderful.
See ya.